Well, we can go now to our correspondent in Beirut, in Lebanon, Rawad Taha, for more on this. Hi, Rawad. We were just hearing there then from his lawyer, from Georges Abdallah's lawyer here in Paris. How are people reacting in Lebanon to the news of Georges Abdallah's imminent release?
Now, we know for a fact that Georges Abdallah's case is a case that is almost 40 years old. It is rooted in Lebanon's civil war and a lot of the armed conflicts that were going on in the country, as well as a lot of the resistance movements of both Palestinian factions and Lebanese factions against Israeli occupation in Lebanon, and as well involvement in Lebanon's civil war. So indeed, this is major news here today in Lebanon. Many groups here in Lebanon are celebrating this decision, in particular leftist groups, the Lebanese Communist Party, as well as parties and political actors who have been affiliated with the Palestinian armed resistance in Lebanon in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Yet there is some worry that through some different procedures, this release could be jeopardized, or some sort of a loophole in the system which could allow authorities to make sure that he is not released. We know for a fact that this is not the first appeal that was submitted. We've seen decisions in the past, in the early 2000s, a few years ago, where everyone here in Lebanon was anticipating the release of Georges Abdallah, yet that has not been the case. So everyone is here waiting for whether this is going to be a reality. A number of political parties here in Lebanon have also stressed on Lebanon's foreign ministry to facilitate all the paperwork needed to make sure Abdallah is exported or is actually given the paperwork he needs in order to fly to Beirut as soon as possible after his release.
And now, you know, he was sentenced in 1987. That's a very long time ago. Can you give us an idea about how, in general, these historical pro-Palestinian fighters are viewed by different groups, really, in Lebanon?
Now, this is really a very polarizing topic. We're talking about an area out of which these armed groups or resistance fighters, as they call themselves, have been involved to a certain extent in many of the conflicts of Lebanon's internal civil war. So mostly the new generation here in Lebanon is not very aware of that polarization that has happening during that time. We know also that Lebanon's history books don't teach in schools the history of the Lebanon civil war. So a lot of the youth in Lebanon don't frankly know who Georges Abdallah is. So yet when it comes to the polarization, that polarization which was there during Lebanon's civil war is still here today. And that reflects how different political parties and political actors here in Lebanon view Georges Abdallah. Two political parties which were involved in the Lebanese civil war on the Palestinian side, like the Lebanese Communist Party, the Syrian Socialist Nationalist Party, the Progressive Socialist Party, as well as all the parties which were involved in the conflict with Israel directly, such as Amal movement or Hezbollah. They view him as a resistance fighter, as a leader. They are waiting for his return to Lebanon. On the other hand, when we look at the Lebanese nationalist parties, which were on the other front of Lebanon's civil war, for example, the Lebanese Forces, the Lebanese Kata'ib Party, and other Christian militias, they don't necessarily consider him to be an ally, rather than he was on the other side of history during that time. So indeed, a portion of the Lebanese society is excited for Georges Abdallah's release and return, while a portion of Lebanon's society doesn't necessarily consider him a hero, as those groups describe him. And a big portion of Lebanon's youth, as I mentioned, don't necessarily know who Georges Abdallah is.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much, Rawad Taha, there speaking to us from Beirut in Lebanon.